Chapter 261, The Best at Something 3. The moment I heard the system message, the surrounding landscape started to change. The mythical battlefield. The feature of this mythical battlefield was to virtually borrow the stage of a giant story. You have entered the Armageddon battlefield. The game will start after 3 minutes. On one side of the sky, a stairway of heaven opened, while the other side was a door of hell. If this was real, the archangels of Eden would have flocked to the staircase, while the demon kings of the demon world would have come out of the gate of hell. Fortunately, there was no such thing. This was a hypothetical stage. The constellation Guardian of Youths and Travel is frowning at the familiar stage. The demon king of lust and fury is showing hostility to Guardian of Youths and Travel. Many constellations and demon kings are confronting each other. I really hoped it wouldn't be a big deal. It is eerie. Jang Haeyoung held his shoulders while looking up at the sky. I heard an eerie sound in the background. I looked at the huge shield that surrounded us. The shield would protect us until the game started. Stay alert. Please check your selected position. The party members regained their composure at my words. Who's the tanker? I am. The tanker was Samyongdang. The close-range damage dealers were me and the Breaking the Sky Master, and the long-range damage dealers were Jang Haeyoung and Asu. Han Myungo was the supporter. Finally, the all-rounder was Yu Jonghyuk. He might have fallen somewhere else. The mythical battlefield depended on where you were summoned from. The helper Yu Jonghyuk has responded to the summons. This message appeared, so Yu Jonghyuk should be somewhere on the battlefield. Jang Haeyoung asked, "Is this game on a battlefield of time and space? I've seen it. If the enemy's stronghold is destroyed." That's right, still it is a bit different. Usually, an AOS game ended when you captured the enemy's main base. This game was different. We have to capture the sentence, not the base. Sentence. I pointed to the object that was in Han Myungo's hand. It was a small monument shining with brilliant colors. What is this? We have to protect that. The monument literally contained a small sentence. Messengers of heaven, gatekeeper of hell. Han Myungo was terrified and tried to hand over the monument to me. I pushed it with the palm of my hand and stated, "Department Head Nim should hold it. It is important to guard it well." It is because it is important that Dr. SSI should. Department Head Nim should hold it because it is important. The sentence is usually held by the main participant. The enemies are expecting that. I won't do it. I have never played such a game. Han Myungo was dull in games despite being the department head of a game company. Come to think of it, Yu Sanga played games well. Yu Sanga carried her team alone and reached the finals of the in-house game competition. However, the person present now was Han Myungo, not Yu Sanga. In any case, there are 2 ways to win this game. One is to steal the enemy team's sentence. The other is to kill all of the enemy team's participants. It will be easier to steal the sentence. Yes, that is usually the case. Good, leave it to me, Jang Haeyoung cried out in a highly motivated manner. However, this wasn't a solo game. I know you are motivated, but stop your personal play. From now on, we will make a plan. Bark bark. Woof woof. I had forgotten 2 of my companions. The dog who threw himself into the flames was sniffing around the periphery, while the Breaking the Sky Master was lying down like she wasn't interested. I turned my head toward my last hope. Samyongdang. He seemed to be listening to advice from other constellations, so he was the only one I could expect anything from. I don't understand because you are using difficult words. Ooh, game, what is this? Samyongdang had an incredibly annoyed expression. Some of the constellations of the Korean peninsula are frustrated with the bald general of justice. I never considered that he was an elder. Samyongdang didn't know the modern game terminology. In any case, I just have to kill all of them. Yes, it is similar. If that's the case, we'll be the winner. I am your helper. Samyongdang started to run while wielding his bamboo stick. The game has started. Then the stage's shield was finally lifted. The stats of the players will be automatically adjusted based on the difficulty of the game. In the first round, all participants can only use 10% of their original stats. This penalty will be reduced as the number of rounds increases. Then in our stairway to heaven side, small angels resembling fairies started to fly. The team support group is created. The low-grade angels are helping you. The surprised Asu barked at the angels. Hey, don't bite them, they're on our side. Samyongdang, wait, let's go together. It was a roller coaster from the start. Samyongdang was in the front line, and the Breaking the Sky Master and Asu started sprinting after him. Jang Haeyoung and I chased them, while Han Myungo was timid at the back of the party. Department Head Nim, stay in the back as much as possible. Don't come forward. I will do my best. Han Myungo was excellent at running away, and would find a way no matter what. The map changed. We left our main area, and a vast plains area unfolded in front of us. Both sides of the plains had a valley and forest respectively. If I remembered correctly, there was the Apocalypse Imugi on the valley side and the Fallen Seraphim on the forest side. In addition, there were quite a number of monsters that gave a buff effect if they were caught early in the map. Wait a minute, Samyongdang, don't go too fast. Believe in me, I'm strong in a war. Samyongdang let out a brilliant true voice and reached into the air. Fallen spirits of the Korean peninsula, give me the power to win. Who would give strength to Samyongdang? Surprisingly, messages were heard. The constellation, Lady of the Brocade Sleep, is supporting the constellation, Bald General of Justice. The constellation, Last Hero of H. Wangsun Biao, is cheering on the constellation, Bald General of Justice. The constellation, King Humu the Great, has sponsored 100 coins to the constellation, Bald General of Justice. It was literally a simple cheer. Oh! Soon after, the enemy appeared in front of him. Every constellation in an incarnation body was holding a weapon. General of Vanara poked out his eyes. Thunder-eating bird. There was a monstrous monkey dressed in armor with golden feathers. In addition, King Oedipus, whom I once met, the constellations were encountered seemed to be from the Meladon Industrial Complex. It was a party where narrative-grade constellations were mixed. However, there was still a chance of winning because they had less insight into the game. Come on, you barbarians! Samyongdang discovered the enemies and made a sudden attack. His voice was so loud that I felt some expectations for a moment. Yes, I didn't know until I saw him fight. On the battlefield where only 10% of stats could be used, I didn't know the strength of Samyongdang. I couldn't belittle a great grade constellation. There were strong people like Chiak Yungyong among them. This guardian god of victory will break down this battle formation. Samyongdang swept the bamboo stick. The confused constellation screamed and an explosion swept through the battlefield. Flesh scattered everywhere. A weapon was broken. Blood scattered from a wound. The first death has occurred. Samyongdang fought well. I looked around at the party members and cried out, "Everyone, run away." The helper Bald General of Justice was defeated by the helper General of Vanara. The industrial complex Meladon team has earned 1 point. Shit, what was with that monk? Believe in him. Han Myungo was the fastest when it came to running away. I thought it would be like this, but Samyongdang wasn't just trolling. Samyongdang's soul is roaming the battlefield. Oh! The dead soul of Samyongdang wandered around the battlefield and attacked the constellations coming after us. It was thanks to this that we found a chance to run away. However, the enemy's pursuit was fast. The first one chasing us was a huge bird covering the sky. It was the thunder-eating bird. If I remembered correctly, the bird's real name was Garuda. He was the mount of Vishnu, one of the 3 lords of Vedas. His beak changed trajectory in the air and turned towards me. The constellation, Dog who threw himself into the flames, is throwing his body to protect you. At this moment, Asu ran forward. He struck Garuda's big body from the side. Grrrr. Fortunately, Asu clung onto the feathers of Garuda. Flames rose as Asu barked at us to run away. Bark, 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 yip. It was a situation where Asu was clinging to a constellation. It was too late to save him. The helper dog who threw himself into the flames has died. Damn it, the situation was getting worse. The Breaking the Sky Master was nowhere to be seen. The people left were Jang Haeyoung, Han Myungo, and I. I am sorry. Then Han Myungo suddenly committed an abrupt act. Han Myungo cut off one of his legs. The character Han Myungo has activated one-legged Swift Runner LV-10. Oh, Han Myungo had that damn stigma. Han Myungo started running like an ostrich. Yes, it was all over if Han Myungo, so it was better for him to run away. By the way, that skill had already reached level 10. Kim Daksha, now what? I blocked Jang Haeyoung and immediately jumped into the surrounding grass. You have concealed yourself in the nearby terrain. The effect of the bush means the enemies can't detect you. I looked up at Garuda and whispered to Jang Haeyoung. Can't fight against them with our current power. We have to aim to win by default due to the other players dropping out. It was important to buy time. Do you plan to consume time? Now, there was something I believed in. It was strange since I thought I was going to win with just this member. Somehow, I had to drag out the time a bit more, at least until he came. The Demon King of Salvation, where are you? The true voice echoed in front of the bush. It has been a while since our ill-fated relationship. Fleeing fate and living in a place like this, the blind prophet couldn't read it. The humble but arrogant way of speaking made me instantly aware of his identity. After a while, the presence of King Oedipus, the blind and shrewd king, appeared in the forest. I knew he had participated in this selection. However, I didn't expect to encounter him so quickly. You know that hiding is useless. This blind prophet already knows where you are. The moment Jang Haeyoung's shoulders flinched, I placed a finger to his mouth. Don't worry, he can't read my future with his ability. Thus, it was a clear trap. The moment we revealed ourselves, all the nearby constellations would run. It isn't too late now. Olympus is still open to you. The constellation, Demon King of Salvation, says to go away and not speak bullshit. How funny. King Oedipus laughed, but his expression was completely stiff. I'll see if you can keep staying still. The surrounding constellations started to sweep through the bushes. Their attacks were devastating as they used all types of explosions, acid and fire to damage the nearby bushes. The acidic liquid melted my feet and burned my neck and wrists. However, I held Jang Haeyoung's wrists tightly and didn't move. A little bit more, just a bit more. The bombardment swept through the area. Fortunately, they didn't seem to have found us. They started gradually moving away from us. Just a bit more. I listened to the sound and estimated their distance. 10 steps, 20 steps, 30 steps. Suddenly, all the explosions disappeared. Run! Jang Haeyoung and I ran out of the bush. We didn't see any constellations. At this moment, a scream was heard out of nowhere. It was a long and terrible scream. In the distant sky, a bird was falling down with a giant sword through its neck. The helper thunder-eating bird has been killed. He came. Chapter 262, The Best at Something 4. What? The surprised Jang Haeyoung's eyes widened. This is why I wanted to buy time. The participant, Yu Jonghyuk, has killed the helper thunder-eating bird. The Yu Jonghyuk Kim Daksha industrial complex has won 1 point. Yu Jonghyuk falling through the air, and the bewildered constellations could be seen. The constellation, poked out his eyes, is crying out with surprise. The constellation, General of Vanara, is showing hostility towards Yu Jonghyuk. Many constellations are amazed by Yu Jonghyuk's movements. Yu Jonghyuk wasn't panicked at all despite the attacks. His movements seemed like he had grasped all the terrain features of this place. By the time the furious King Oedipus swung his staff, Yu Jonghyuk had already disappeared. Where did you go? Find him, he is near here. The constellations moved and searched around, but they couldn't find where Yu Jonghyuk had disappeared to. I hid behind a tree with Jang Haeyoung and watched the scene. One of Yu Jonghyuk's attributes was pro-gamer. This guy received an overwhelming advantage and adaptability in all games. This game was still in the early stages and stats were limited. Before the constellations were accustomed to the game, this first round was a better stage for us than anyone else. The opponents might be constellations, but it wasn't easy for them to face off against the current Yu Jonghyuk. There he is. The general of Vanara let out a wind blade from his mouth towards a bush and shouted. There was a loud noise and the surrounding terrain was cut. However, this time, Yu Jonghyuk wasn't present. The confused general of Vanara retreated and a flash of light emerged from the dirt on the ground. It was too late to avoid it. The participant, Yu Jonghyuk, has killed the helper general of Vanara. Yes, Yu Jonghyuk should catch at least 2. The Yu Jonghyuk Kim Dokja industrial complex has won 2 points. The participant, Yu Jonghyuk, has started to blow blood onto the battlefield. Jang Haeyoung pointed towards Yu Jonghyuk and shivered. What is this? A monster. It is similar. He is the best pro gamer in South Korea. I was talking about the setting of ways of survival. In the distance, the general of Vanara's body was split in half and he disappeared. The rules of the game were applied so he wouldn't really die, but the mental damage was significant. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is pleased. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband has sponsored 20,000 coins to the Incarnation, Yu Jonghyuk. The true name of the general of Vanara was Hanuman, a monkey hero of Indian mythology. Due to the characteristic of both being monkeys, the 2 constellations didn't have a good relationship with each other. I guess it was true. Should chase him. Yu Jonghyuk killed 2 people and hid in the rocky gorge this time. Then one more enemy appeared. The constellation, founder of humanity, wants to show an example to his arrogant descendant. The constellation who was close to a primitive man, the founder of humanity, Manu. I forgot that he was on the side foe the Meladin industrial complex. Maybe we should help. Manu of Vedas was a narrative-level constellation. He might be low in level among the narrative-grade constellations, but it was absolutely disadvantageous for Yu Jonghyuk. Yu Jonghyuk had already consumed a lot of mobility and magic power killing 2 constellations. He might have the attribute of pro-gamer, but it was too much for him from now on. The participant, Yu Jonghyuk, has activated the Sentinel Golem's blessing. Yu Jonghyuk stood on a rocky highland area and aimed a giant bow. The star relic, Robin Hood's strongbow, has maximized the user's accuracy. This bastard, when did he get this? It was something that could only be obtained from the 15th scenario area, La Gracia. Intangible arrows flew towards the body of King Oedipus. Kyaku. Of course, Yu Jonghyuk's advantage wasn't only swordsmanship. This guy could use all types of weapons with the weapon's mastery skill. You're not a closer range damage dealer. In addition, Yu Jonghyuk's position was all-rounder. The participant, Yu Jonghyuk, will receive the position compensation effect. While this game was in progress, Yu Jonghyuk wouldn't be penalized for using any types of weapons. I will kill you, this thing. King Oedipus screamed as holes were drilled into his body. We should go help. Wait a minute. Making clumsy movements in the current circumstances would only hinder Yu Jonghyuk. Immediately after launching Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, Yu Jonghyuk's operation flowed into my head like a movie trailer. Jang Haeyoung frowned at my flippant smile and asked, "What is it?" That bastard is scarier than I thought. Yu Jonghyuk didn't waste a single second when he came here. The evidence was the Sentinel Golem's blessing that was embedded in his body. The Sentinel Golem's blessing has started to accumulate. The Sentinel Golem inhabited the outskirts of the gorge and gave a fainting buff effect. However, this buff had one condition. The person had to succeed in 20 attacks before the fainting effect was produced. Now there were approximately 10 meters between Yu Jonghyuk and King Oedipus. This thing. King Oedipus jumped and tried to aim for Yu Jonghyuk. King Oedipus' body hardened from the ankle and he collapsed like a stone statue. The helper poked out his eyes has fainted. The duration of the fainting was 3 seconds. These 3 seconds were enough time for Yu Jonghyuk. The participant, Yu Jonghyuk, has killed the helper poked out his eyes. The name of the participant, Yu Jonghyuk, is widely circulated on the battlefield. The Yu Jonghyuk Kim Dokja industrial complex has won 3 points. 3. I honestly admired him. The appearance of the dying King Oedipus was unrealistic. It was hard to believe he was the constellation who threatened me at the constellation banquet. Impertinent fellow. However, the fight hadn't ended yet. Before Yu Jonghyuk could sigh, the excited founder of humanity rushed forward. Yu Jonghyuk was now lacking physical strength and magic power. The primitive spear belonging to the founder of humanity dug into a gap that Yu Jonghyuk revealed. It looked similar to a stone tool, but the power it contained was enormous. On the other hand, Yu Jonghyuk was also tough. He twisted his back with a flexible motion, and at nearly the same time, he swung his weapon. The spear collided with the sword and a sharp sound was heard. The distinctive yellow aura that was only for transcendence was wrapped around Yu Jonghyuk's black demon sword. It opposed the blue status, woven around the primitive spear wielded by Manu. These martial arts, they were skills left behind by worms, it still seems useful. It was a situation where participants could only use 10% of their power. Manu seemed unable to accurately determine the amount of force he could control. There were dozens of exchanges in a flash, and Manu laughed like he was having fun. You are pretty good human. I have seen countless transcendents but none as strong as you. You haven't seen my master. A power similar to martial arts emerged from Manu's spear. Manu had mastered almost every type of talent that a human could gain. Originally, the present Yu Jonghyuk wouldn't be able to defeat Manu. Still, the balance of power was even because Manu hadn't fought such a long battle for a long time. How interesting. I haven't competed with more than 10 blows since becoming a constellation. The forcible equilibrium balance maintained this confrontation. I grabbed Jang Haeyoung who was about to pop out. That jerk will die if this continues. The same thing would happen even if we popped out. I wanted to use electrification to run out and cut off Manu's neck. However, I had to endure it for now. If it turned out like I thought, Yu Jonghyuk would soon welcome an opportunity. All I needed was time, just time. Jang Haeyoung sent a message through the wall. What to who? The founder of humanity. The guy currently fighting with Yu Jonghyuk. The clever Jang Haeyoung realized what I was planning. Jang Haeyoung turned on the unidentified wall and wrote a message. Soon after, Manu's baffled voice rang out. What these messages? I didn't need to ask to know the situation that Manu was facing now. Perhaps countless messages sent by the 15-year-old schoolgirl were popping up like pop-up windows in his field of view. These ridiculous tactics. Manu hesitated, and a white light started to emerge from Yu Jonghyuk's body. I had seen this bright light before. It happened when Jung Hee-won evolved to the Judge of Destruction. Then, when Lee Hyun-sung learnt Great Mountain Smash. The character, Yu Jonghyuk, has reached the moment of attribute evolution. The attribute pro-gamer of the character Yu Jonghyuk has evolved. Attribute evolution. Finally, Yu Jonghyuk's second attribute had come to full bloom. Manu rushed forward and wielded his spear. At the same time, the dazzling light burst from Yu Jonghyuk's body. I watched the fascinating scene and recalled what Lee Jihai said in the latter half of Ways of Survival. Master has countless attributes, whom the best is naturally regressor. Other than that, master of the panacea and enemy of gods and demons are excellent. Which one is the most envious attribute? It is naturally. Manu's spearsmanship swept over Yu Jonghyuk in vain. The ruler of amusement, it is that. Yu Jonghyuk slowly opened his eyes as he made the same expression I had constantly read about. At that moment, Yu Jonghyuk seemed to understand everything about this game. Perhaps in Yu Jonghyuk's eyes, all of Manu's attacks looked like a combination of zeros and ones. It was the legendary attribute, ruler of amusement. As long as this stage was a game, Yu Jonghyuk was closer to a deity than any other constellation in the world. Chapter 263, The Best at Something 5. Yu Jonghyuk's attribute evolved, and the game flowed smoothly like water. The participant, Yu Jonghyuk, has killed the helper founder of humanity. The participant, Yu Jonghyuk, has won the Living Legend title. The constellations hadn't yet adapted to the game and weren't able to follow Yu Jonghyuk's movements. The constellations were inferior to Yu Jonghyuk in terms of utilizing game items, understanding the terrain, and the extra buffs. The participant, Yu Jonghyuk, has started to write a new myth on this mythical battlefield. The participant, Yu Jonghyuk, is raising his name in the rankings of the mythical battlefield. Victory or defeat was decided in an instant. The time limit for the first game is over. The winning team will be determined based on the points it obtained during the time limit. The winning team of the first game is the Yu Jonghyuk Kim Dokja Industrial Complex. We got a total of 6 points. In addition, the sentence we took away from the opposing team meant we had 2 sentences. The flower of the story blooms in the cruel demon territory. Jang Haeyoung stared at the sentence we had obtained several times before looking up blankly. We really won. Yes. I also didn't feel it was real. No matter the situation, we obtained the first victory against the mighty constellation. It wasn't a level to be elated by the fact that things went as planned. The demon king of lust and fury is looking at you with interest. Many constellations are cheering for the Yu Jonghyuk Kim Dokja Industrial Complex. You have obtained 100,000 coins each as a reward for the first game. I was able to see Yu Jonghyuk approaching from a distance. I wanted to say something nice, but Yu Jonghyuk opened his mouth first. The messages were sent by this person. Before I could ask what he was talking about, Bu popped out of Yu Jonghyuk's arms. Bayet. Bu seemed invigorated as she swung the Uriel doll like it was a toy. The constellation, demon-like judge of fire, insists that she didn't do anything. Bu threw the doll into the air and entered my arms. I stroked her head a few days before asking Yu Jonghyuk, who had grabbed the doll. Where the hell did you go? I went to the vicinity of Meladon. Why there? There was an item I had to obtain. Item, what is it? You don't need to know. Yu Jonghyuk's expression was somewhat dissatisfied as he stared at me. In addition, I thought it would be helpful to start at an unexpected position for the selection. It was a good judgment. In the first round, the spawn location different depending on where you were when the game started. Yu Jonghyuk hadn't departed from the same place as us and was able to farm items using a completely different route. This made it easier for him to aim at the enemies. Hahaha, something amazing happened. However, the game isn't over until it ends. I heard Bihyung's voice from the air. His expression seemed somewhat excited because we won. 5 minutes later, the second game will start. It wasn't the time to be drunk on victory. This game had a total of 3 rounds. I looked over at my weary party members. The bodies of the dead Samyongdang and Asu were revived again. Now we just need to win one more time. The game is over if we win 2 rounds first, so everyone just try a bit harder. I tried to cheer them up, but the condition of my party members wasn't good. Samyongdang, why do you look like that? Samyongdang had turned into a wooden gong and was making a rattling sound. That I spent too much of my probability. In this game, death didn't mean the disappearance of the incarnation body. However, the thing that remained unchanged was the number of resources consumed. Asu. Yep. Just like Samyongdang, Asu died in the last game, and he was now almost as small as a guinea pig. It seemed they had overconsumed their probability and energy in the last game. The constellations of the same rank had significant differences in level due to the quantity and quality of their accumulated stories. It was Han Myungo who opened his mouth. I can't do it anymore. Han Myungo had run away safely until the end of the first game. He was like a lizard as his cut-off legs slowly grew. Nevertheless, his face had aged 10 years during this short period. It's fine, you've worked hard. No matter how much their power was suppressed, the opponents were still constellations. He had faced the status of a constellation for more than an hour, and any normal incarnation would collapse. The small consolation was that the Breaking the Sky Master was unharmed. Woof woof. In the first game, the Breaking the Sky Master helped Yu Jonghyuk hunt one of the constellations. Me, Yu Jonghyuk, Jang Haeyoung, and the Breaking the Sky Master. Now there were only the 4 of us in the team. Understandably, 4 wasn't enough to win the game. Then Yu Jonghyuk opened his mouth. I will try to call additional power. Do you have any constellations? I don't know if reinforcements will come in time. I'll just put them on the list for now. I had no idea of who he would call. Did Yu Jonghyuk have any connections during this period? Yu Jonghyuk continued talking. We have to change our plan in the second round. Our positions as well. Why can't we do it like the last round? At Jang Haeyoung's question, Yu Jonghyuk glanced at me and silently shook his head. I ended up answering instead. Yu Jonghyuk's attribute is powerful, but it isn't invincible. It seems almost invincible. It was because the constellations didn't know much about this game. From the second round, the penalty on stats would be slightly released. The constellations who had looked down on us would start to collect attributes and skills related to the game, and would narrow the gap using an enormous amount of coins. Yu Jonghyuk might have ruler of amusement, but there was a limit to him alone. I pondered for a moment before declaring to the party members, I have an idea. We have decided to cooperate with the Birken Industrial Complex. Are you telling me to join forces with Papyrus? It isn't the time to cover hot water with cold water. A deep sigh emerged from Duke Meladin, who resembled a rhinoceros. All the constellations on the battlefield had been destroyed by a single incarnation. They were caught off guard and hit in the back or had a sword piercing their feet. There were even constellations who fought against him one-on-one and were defeated. We can't let them win this time. You should know this. Don't worry. I was careless in the last round, but this time will be different. Founder of humanity, Mono gritted his teeth as he raised the primitive spear. I have learned enough about this game. In fact, messages had been coming from the air for a long time. The constellation, Founder of Humanity, has purchased the special game talent skill. The constellation, Thunder Eating Bird, has purchased the 1-week game master item. The Docubus were grinning widely at the suddenly buying binge. Oh my constellations, going to this extent. The constellations didn't like this expression on the Docubus, but the more important thing was their pride, which had been crushed by the incarnation. Let's go. The game started and the constellations moved in unison. The influence of the attributes and items was great. They used the terrain to cover their actions and were fully aware of how their stigmas and skills were applied to this game. The all-rounder of the team was the incomprehensible incarnation. If they killed him, the game would end. Over there, the thunder-eating bird glided and created strong winds. Amidst the windswept bushes, the owner of the sword was revealed. It was Yu Jonghyuk. Now, the moment that Duke Meladin gave the signal, 4 constellations rushed at once. It will be different from before. The Founder of Humanity swung his spear, followed by a ray from King Oedipus. Yu Jonghyuk couldn't avoid the attack and blood flowed from his forearm. The shadow of General of Vanara split up and pursued the gap revealed by Yu Jonghyuk. A sharp rod brushed past Yu Jonghyuk's side. There was the sound of flesh being hit. Now the power of the constellations was limited to 30%. That damage that Yu Jonghyuk received was different from before. However, Yu Jonghyuk held up well despite the constellations' onslaught. Why isn't he dead? Duke Meladin felt it was strange and used a skill to figure out Yu Jonghyuk's physical state. Surprisingly, Yu Jonghyuk still had more than 70% of his health remaining. This guy's health is a bit strange, don't tell me. Then the screams of the constellations were heard from the rear. The enemies probably believed that Yu Jonghyuk was an all-rounder. Breaking the Sky Master. The Breaking the Sky Master flew forward at my signal. Like a spear of light dividing the space, the Breaking the Sky Master penetrated the torso of the thunder-eating bird who was aiming at Yu Jonghyuk. The battered bird fell down, and the Breaking the Sky Master tore at the bird's torso with her fangs. As soon as our position was exposed, the nearby constellations started to run this way. There were a total of 3 constellations rushing over. The long-distance damage dealer Jang Haeyoung received an agility penalty, so there was no chance of winning when it was close combat. Even so, the situation was different this time. Kim Dokja, buy me 10 seconds. Understood. Jang Haeyoung took a stance, his left hand forward while his right fist was pulled back to his shoulder as he started gathering strength. Jang Haeyoung has used the points earned to unseal a specific skill. The helper Jang Haeyoung is preparing the ultimate. In this game, stigmas and skills over a certain power level were treated as ultimate. In addition, the ultimate could only be released with points obtained in the game. Jang Haeyoung used the points we had just earned as an assistant. The helper Jang Haeyoung has activated Breaking the Sky Force Punch LV. 10. There was the sound of a cannon bursting, and a mighty wind was created as Jang Haeyoung's fist tore through the space. The wind crushed the ray of light coming from King Oedipus and blew away 2 of the running constellations. Breaking the Sky Force Punch. I had seen it in Ways of Survival. It was a technique made out of boredom by the Breaking the Sky Sword Saint who pursued the path of the sword. I didn't know she could make such a powerful technique when bored. The helper Jang Haeyoung has killed the helper Thunder-Eating Bird. The helper Jang Haeyoung has neutralized the helper General of Vanara. I thought it would be a success just defeating 1 constellation. Yet 1 constellation died and 1 suffered a fatal wound. Didn't I say that I was a hard worker? Jang Haeyoung laughed despite obviously overdoing it. Even Jang Haeyoung would find it hard to achieve such rapid growth. Maybe he made a deal with the unidentified wall. Kill him. The enraged constellations ran in a messy manner. Jang Haeyoung also ran towards them. Kim Dokja, go do it according to the plan. If I tried to save Jang Haeyoung here, the time would be delayed. This time, it was me who had the sentence. Shortly after I ran towards the gorge, a scream was heard from behind me. The helper Breaking the Sky Master has been killed. The helper Jang Haeyoung has been killed. Shit, fortunately Yu Jonghyuk was still in good shape. Whether he was a tanker or all-rounder, Yu Jonghyuk was Yu Jonghyuk. I went down to the bottom of the canyon and dark fog started to pour into the vicinity. I had calculated this. If the fog had begun, the monster would soon appear here. Then a constellation was felt from above the rocky terrain. You are quick, Demon King of Salvation. It was an unexpected move. Meladon's side should be tied up with Yu Jonghyuk. How did they already reach here? The moment I saw the shadow on the canyon rocks, I realized what happened. There was the shadow of a giant mummy and a goddess with a pointed scorpion tail. They were constellations of the Burkan who hadn't been seen in the last game. The last pharaoh Cleopatra and the scorpion goddess Circuit. Surprisingly, King Oedipus of the Meladon camp could also be seen. I smiled bitterly. I see, you have decided to join forces. Circuit's tail swelled up and fired a stinger towards me. I was about to avoid the attack when old bandages released by the last pharaoh wrapped around my ankles. Close-range damage dealers were vulnerable to long-range damage dealers. My movements were limited, so it was obvious that I would die like this. King Oedipus seemed ready to finish things. I reflexively curled up. A powerful storm swept over my body. I could hear the laughter of the constellations. It was a laugh that was convinced of my death from this blow. You have converted the points won in the last game. You have unlocked a certain skill with the points. I slowly raised my body in the dust. The laughter disappeared from the constellations' faces as they saw me. The constellation poked out his eyes is astonished. The constellation Scorpion Goddess has wide eyes. The white fur wrapped around me protected me without a single scratch. The exclusive skill bookmark has been activated. It had been a long time since I used the third bookmark. I had been hesitant to use this bookmark for quite some time. I didn't think it was polite to my Dakibai. Your understanding of this person is very high, and the skill abilities are strengthened. The exclusive skill Beast King Sensitivity LV 10+1 has been activated. I felt the warmth of Bu curled up in my arms. The third bookmark, Beast Master Shin Yusung. I looked up at the constellations on the canyon with the white fur wrapped around me. The participant, Demon King of Salvation, will receive the position compensation effect. I didn't have the same attack power as Yu Jonghyuk, nor could I learn things quickly like Jang Haeyoung. However, I had something better than them. I'm sorry, but I'm the all-rounder in this game. The Demon King selection would end in the second round. Chapter 264, Dokja's Story 1. The fourth bookmark. The exclusive skill Way of the Wind LV 11+1 is activated. I avoided the flying sting of the Scorpion Goddess. If the strength of her body hadn't been suppressed, the poison would have vaporized the whole area. However, it was fine since I had Way of the Wind. I stepped on the melted gorge and released the white pure star energy. My sword cut the bandages of the last pharaoh. The moment my sword hit the bandages, there was the sound of a drum beat. King Oedipus didn't miss this gap and flew forward. The exclusive skill Beast King Sensitivity LV 10+1 has been activated. Normally, this was an impossible fight. Originally, only one bookmark could be used at a time. The effect of Looked into the Abyss has improved all your skills. Currently, 2 bookmarks are being used at the same time. The duration of bookmark is reduced by half. All my skills had improved since the last time I checked my attributes window. The fifth bookmark. The exclusive skill Electrification LV 12+2 has been activated. I became smaller through miniaturization. Then I turned into a point of light and penetrated the torso of the last pharaoh. The last pharaoh suffered a fatal wound and collapsed to the ground with a scream. I was fighting with the history I had built up, the things I read, the times I had lived, everything that I had. How many more flashes of light were seen and how much blood was spilled. King Oedipus opened his mouth and spoke in a slightly weary tone. Great Demon King of Salvation. Honestly, I didn't think you would be this strong. Nevertheless, there wasn't a look of defeat on his face. Shadows flocked to the top of the gorge. They were the other constellations belonging to Meladin and Birkin. Duke Birkin. Mysterious bird of the Nile. Supreme god of light. The number of constellations that appeared was close to 10. They looked down here from the high cliff of the gorge. I was stifled by the presence of the constellations, but I didn't back down. Are you just going to watch from there? Rather, I raised the status that was sleeping inside me. I was also a constellation. I didn't lose to them in terms of status. Some of the constellations were crushed by the status I released and stumbled back. However, it wasn't everyone. You're an interesting child. All of a sudden, some of the constellations on top of the canyon bowed and retreated. Someone was approaching from among the constellations. His long, golden hair waved every time he took a step, and his 4 arms drew a beautiful rainbow. The third eye on his forehead looked down here like the sun coming out. Mitra was trying to get his own holiday off, so I was wondering what type of person you were. His blinding appearance made his modifier obvious. The supreme god of light. I even knew his true name, Surya. Dazzling sparks appeared when I mentioned his real name. It was a sight that attested to the status of the name. Kid, do you know my name? I know. The Nebula Vedas had 8 great Lokapala. They were the guardians of the 8 cardinal directions, including north, south, east, and west. Surya of the southwest. Surya was one of the 8 Lokapala. The constellation mass production maker is frowning. The constellation, goddess of love and beauty, is accusing the supreme god of light. The constellation, queen of the darkest spring, is pointing out that this behavior doesn't fit the status of the supreme god of light. He was a powerful being equal to the 12 gods of Olympus. This presence was staring at me. If so, you know that you can't win this game. The status of over 1,000 years emerged from his body, and I suppressed the desire to step back. He wasn't a constellation I could fight against. Loka Surya was different from King Oedipus and Cleopatra, who were humans that became constellations. Come to Vedas, you will die even if you win this game. I don't want to. You don't know the world that will appear after the giant story. Do you think you can stand against that power alone? It isn't a story that only one star can afford. I knew what he was saying. Perhaps the world that Surya saw was different from the world that I saw. Just by obtaining a single giant story, the level of the world that the constellation could perceive was entirely different. Nope, I can afford it. I'm not alone. The possibility of a new story is germinated. The 73rd demon realm wriggled as if in response to my words. Surya felt the vibrations and said, "You aren't alone. How funny. Who is with you now?" A person who is more familiar with the cause and effect law than anyone else is saying this. It is truly ridiculous. A powerful storm started to flow from Surya's incarnation body. The constellations around him turned pale. Still, he couldn't exercise all his power in this game, no matter his status. Sparks burst out in a dazzling manner. In this game, Meladon had won 2 points. These 2 points might be able to free one of Surya's stigmas. I couldn't let that happen. As I moved, the constellations blocked my way. A fist containing the power of electrification struck the face of the constellations. The broken heart of a young gold dragon repeatedly pumped and created a massive amount of magic power. I didn't hesitate to release this strength. A little more, just a bit more. I had to draw my magic power to the limits. The constellations couldn't cope with the power of electrification and fell down while bleeding. It was a transcendent power that could even destroy constellations. The white lightning burnt the bodies of the constellations. The participant demon king of salvation has killed the helper scorpion goddess. The participant demon king of salvation has killed the helper the last pharaoh. The broken heart of the gold dragon couldn't afford the magic power, and the energy in my body suddenly fell sharply. I gritted my teeth and moved. I dealt a blow to Duke Birkin and immediately turned my back to him, striking a blow to the mysterious bird of the Nile. You are overly affected by the character. The excessive use of bookmark can leave a permanent injury on your soul. Meanwhile, the supreme god of light wasn't perplexed at all as he saw me moving closer. I have watched you for a long time. You always borrow the power of other beings. The Beast King's sensitivity wrapped around my body while I prepared to deal a blow with electrification. From the first scenario to the present, you have never fought with your own power. Do you really think you can build up your own story? The history that you've learnt is just history that came from stealing. It felt like I was facing hard steel. The supreme god of light used only one of his 4 arms to block the blow from electrification. It isn't yours. The third eye of the god shone as brightly as the sun. At that moment, I realized what stigma Surya had released. The constellation, supreme god of light, is invoking the third eye. My vision distorted and all the light around me disappeared. In the darkness, I felt the edge of this space gradually crumbling. There is no you in your story. Everything around me was already Surya's space. You will die alone. The third eye had the power to control time and space. It was the power of Surya's third eye. I was confused because I didn't think Surya would use this power so quickly. How could I get out of here? It wasn't possible to use electrification and way of the wind. The legendary story, distorting things as one pleases, has activated. I didn't know what to read. King of a kingless world wasn't suitable. Person who opposes the miracle was also ambiguous. The same was true for one who hunted the king of disasters. The space was now reduced to 1 square meter. What should I do? The story, distorting things as one pleases, is screaming. My back was tingling when I heard a sound. It sounded familiar, as if someone was eating a story. Delicious food. I looked back and a small mouth was stuck to my back, eating my story. Kim Dakya is a faux wall. It was the fourth wall. This bastard wasn't going to help me. The torn apart, distorting things as one pleases was now nearly useless and was entering its stomach. I forgot the urgency and shouted at the absurd situation. By the way, the thing that came out of my mouth wasn't a yell. The fourth wall said, "Kuwa'aya." An explosive burst of sound poured into the surrounding space. The space trembled like it was a living creature, and a gigantic crack formed. The stigma, the third eye, is shuddering. I realized what was going on. The third eye was a mental ability that controlled time and space by manipulating cognition. The fourth wall was the strongest skill I had in regards to a mental barrier. The constellation, Supreme God of Light, is astonished. The darkness collapsed like glass breaking. Once the light returned, the first thing I saw was tears coming from the eye on the forehead of the Supreme God of Light. "You, what are you?" The astonished true voice resonated, and the other constellations hurriedly rushed towards me. "You dare die." My magic power was at the bottom. I didn't have enough power to open bookmark again. Nevertheless, it wasn't necessary anymore. It had been 20 minutes since the game started. The fog of the gorge is thickening. There was a groan from somewhere in the gorge, and the movements of the constellations stopped. The nervous constellations looked at the top of the gorge, and a dark shadow fell towards this side. I nervously slid down a rocky wall. It had been a long time since I saw something like this. The length was 5 kilometers. The body, with a circumference of over 10 meters, was falling towards the ground along with the collapsed upper part of the gorge. The constellations let out warning signals, but the large ones were crushed under the scales of the giant monster. The helper, mysterious bird of the Nile, has been killed by the apocalypse Imugi. The monster burst like a bug and coiled up in the gorge, crying towards the air. The apocalypse Imugi. It was the name of the monster I had been waiting for. Damn, don't back down. The constellations were overwhelmed by the sudden disaster and started attacking with their stigmas. The one who killed the monster could get a powerful team buff. However, there was no way I could knock it down. According to Ways of Survival, the red dragon of the apocalypse who appeared in Armageddon had the fearsome power to blow up a third of the stars in the sky with a single tail. Kuak. Of course, this Imugi wasn't at the level of the red dragon of the apocalypse, but there were no constellations who could deal with this monster at the beginning of the game. Kuyak. The constellations screamed as they were torn apart by the teeth of the Imugi, while those struck by the tail were blown away. The unstoppable system messages were signaling the devastation of the gorge. In a moment, 7 participants and helpers died in the gorge. The surviving constellations escaped from the gorge using the sacrifice of other constellations. Surya's cold voice echoed through the gorge. "You have a wicked trick up your sleeve. However, you won't be able to make it." The apocalypse Imugi struck the constellations and was now looking at me. A red sphere gathered at its mouth in order to dissolve the last insect. The red flames of the apocalypse. It was the fire of judgment that could melt everything on the ground. The plan was okay. Meladin and Birkin suffered deadly damage, and the disadvantage of the game was now balanced to an almost equal level. I would have liked to have a bit more strength left. My death here meant we would be deprived of our sentences. I felt regret and emptiness. If we went to the third game, was there a chance for us to win? My eyes slowly closed as dark red flames headed towards my head. The waves of heat enveloped my body, and there was the sizzling sound of rocks melting. Still, I didn't die no matter how much time passed. A new helper has been summoned to the game. I opened my eyes and saw someone in front of me. He wore a neat commando uniform. The soldier with the Special Forces mark on his shoulder was blocking the flames with a huge shield. The constellation, Master of Steel, is looking at you. He had endured even the hottest hell flames ignition. A captain of South Korea's Special Operations Command. I watched the trembling man swallowing and sighed. How or why? I wanted to ask but didn't say anything. Numerous voices were pouring towards me through Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, and all my words were pointless. Afterwards, a giant chimera dragon was seen falling from the sky. A new helper has been summoned to the game. I saw the little girl sitting on the head of the dragon and, funnily enough, felt a bit tearful. Ajasi. The helpers that Yu Jonghyuk called finally reached the battlefield. Chapter 265, Episode 50, Dokja's Story 2. There were a total of 3 reinforcements that Yu Jonghyuk invited: Beast Master Shin Yusung, Steel Sword Lee Hyunsung, and Hyunsung SSI, please take Dokja SSI out of here. Ariadne's web shot through the air and placed me on Lee Hyunsung's back. A woman in a cat suit was running through the sky with the Hermes walking method. It was the incarnation of Olympus, Yu Sanga. Yusung, fire the breath from a long distance. Continue until Hyunsung SSI leaves. The chimera dragon roared and fired a breath. The apocalypse Imugi screamed like it was quite painful. The constellation, Master of Steel, has given a great probability to his incarnation. The constellation, Abandoned Lover of the Labyrinth, is supporting her incarnation. The constellation, Master of the Skywalk, is supporting his incarnation. The constellations supporting Lee Hyunsung and Yu Sanga seem to be struggling. Thanks to Yu Sanga's commands, I was forcibly carried on Lee Hyunsung's shoulder. Lee Hyunsung SSI. Stay still, Dokja SSI. You don't have to do this, I can move now. Lee Hyunsung didn't loosen his hard arms at my words. The only thing he did was silently climb the gorge. Once the top of the gorge could be seen, Lee Hyunsung opened his mouth. Dokja SSI, have you ever thrown a grenade? Grenade. To use a grenade, you have to go through 3 steps. Remove the safety clip, remove the safety pin, and throw it. I know because I've thrown it in the training camp. Then you know how important the safety pin is for a grenade. I realized what Lee Hyunsung was trying to say. I lost the safety pin. Wasn't it the bullet shell last time? I thought that I shouldn't lose it again. Lee Hyunsung turned his head and looked back at me. Once the safety pin is inserted, it must be done well. Soon after, we reached the top of the gorge. At the bottom, Yu Sanga and Shin Yusung were riding the chimera dragon out of the gorge. I saw Shin Yusung's brightly smiling face and my heart felt complicated. Hyunsung SSI. Yes. I knew what Lee Hyunsung wanted to say. He had been a soldier all his life, so this was the only way he could express it. Thank you for coming. I heard a sniffling sound but pretended not to know anything. After a while, something rolled like an acorn and crashed into my leg. Ajasi. She hugged my tattered leg like it was precious. It's been a while, Yusung. Shin Yusung nodded vigorously when her face against my coat. I patted Shin Yusung's back while Yu Sanga approached. It has been a long time, Dokja SSI. Yes, have you been well? Well, it was a stupid question. Since the scenario started, no one could be well. You are the same, Dokja SSI. Yu Sanga's smile wasn't false. Before the destruction of the world and after the destruction, Yu Sanga was the only one who laughed at my jokes. The others, only we came. He won SSI and the kids wanted to come as well, but I tossed the coin with Lee Gilyoung and won. Shin Yusung interrupted with a laugh. I see. My life was decided by throwing a coin. I stroked Shin Yusung's head and said, Thank you, Yu Sanga SSI. I was just thinking about going. There was a bad sign from Dokja SC's good or bad luck, disaster or happiness fortune. Good or bad luck, disaster or happiness fortune. I knew this skill. There was only one constellation on the Korean peninsula who had it. Yes, it showed great misfortune. Soo-young and I were wondering about who should go when Yu Jonghyuk contacted us. I roughly understood what was going on. I didn't think Han Soo-young and Yu Sanga would throw a coin, so Yu Sanga probably came because Han Soo-young had a problem. Han Suyong seemed to be doing well with the job I entrusted to her. Suyong SSI also wanted to come. Ah yes, indeed. It was a lie, she disliked me. Then there was a rumbling sound from a bush. I was so excited to meet my companions again that I forgot the game wasn't over. I rushed through the forest area with the group and asked, "Are you aware of the situation?" Yu Sangha nodded. I heard the story from Bihyung. Yu Jonghyuk might be playing in the tanker position with ruler of amusement, but by now, his health would have almost reached the bottom. The second game would be decided here. The Chimera Dragon let out a burst of wind, and the nearby trees collapsed. The battlefield where the constellations was fighting was clearly revealed. Yu Jonghyuk. Yu Jonghyuk glanced this way from where he was surrounded by constellations. "You're late." He was still arrogant, but the blood flowing from his body made him seem like he was dying. He has a sentence. Perhaps there was a special skill to determine this, as one constellation screamed. Apart from our team, the number of participants remaining was 6. Our side had only 5 people, including the new reinforcements. In addition, Yu Jonghyuk was in a state where he almost couldn't fight anymore. Go! As the all-out combat began, the constellations set up a formation centered around the founder of humanity and general of Vanara. The first one to run towards them was Steel Sword Lee Hyun-sung. Lost it again. Lee Hyun-sung flew forward and started to fight with the narrative-grade constellation, Manu. Manu frowned like he was displeased to exchange blows with an incarnation. His powerful status burned at Manu's fingertips and the steel shell was slightly softened, but Lee Hyun-sung didn't back down. The constellation, Master of Steel, is looking at the founder of humanity. The founder of humanity was narrative-grade, but so was the Master of Steel. I looked at the thorns of steel transformation rising around Lee Hyun-sung's body, and I could only guess how harsh the personal scenarios that he completed were. It wasn't a position that more than 10 incarnations could reach. The current Lee Hyun-sung showed an overwhelming growth potential than the Lee Hyun-sung of any other rounds. Yu Sangha watched the scene and also ran forward. "I'll take Olympus." "This girl, are you crazy?" King Oedipus discovered Yu Sangha. The two of them both belonged to Olympus. However, based on what I heard from Dionysus, Olympus was currently in the middle of a civil war. "Master of the Skywalk, you're making the wrong choice right now." I didn't know the exact situation, but it was obvious that a group led by Dionysus and Hermes was trying to be independent from the existing Olympus. Yu Sangha started fighting with King Oedipus, while Shin Yusung moved the Chimera Dragon. The condensed breath covered the battlefield. The constellations who couldn't avoid it screamed. There are 10 minutes remaining. The second round was reaching its end. At this moment, the points of each team were almost equal. The constellations were desperate. Several constellations headed towards the Chimera Dragon, and the Dragon and Shin Yusung were in a crisis. The Dragon wasn't able to use its force, because it consumed quite a lot of power when dealing with the Apocalypse Imugi. A hatchling, it is only big. It would be our side that was disadvantageous if this round ended in a draw. The game would flow into the third game, and if we didn't win, we would have to deal with the constellations on a stage where the penalty had disappeared. Yu Jonghyuk knew this fact and pointed to Duke Birkin. "Kill the Duke, he has the sentence." I nodded. "I will create a path." Yu Jonghyuk squeezed out his magic power and used breaking the sky swordsmanship. "They are aiming for the sentence." Yu Jonghyuk slashed and slashed again to create a road. He used his last force to draw a huge semicircle on the ground, and the constellations rushed at him. "I'll leave it to you, Kim Dokcha." Yu Jonghyuk was pierced in the heart by Manu's spear. The helper Yu Jonghyuk has been killed. He stood upright even at the moment of death. The constellations turned to me after Yu Jonghyuk disappeared. The primitive spear and a ray of light headed my way. However, the bombardment didn't reach me. Dokcha SI. Lee Hyun-sung activated steel transformation to block the attacks of the constellations. The hot heat and shock would be terribly painful, but Lee Hyun-sung seemed more energetic. Duke Birkin could be seen in the distance. There are 5 minutes remaining. Hyun-sung SSI, throw me. It isn't possible, doing that again. You have to throw the grenade after pulling out the safety pin. I stared into Lee Hyun-sung's shaky eyes. Even if I die here, I won't really die. The real death was losing this Demon King selection. Lee Hyun-sung watched for a while before closing and opening his eyes. Lee Hyun-sung's eyes returned to that of a soldier. I won't believe your lie again. No, now isn't the time to be stubborn. If you die, we will die together. The constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is greatly pleased. I must do this. Then Lee Hyun-sung started running with me on his back. Manu was hit by the rushing Lee Hyun-sung and rolled on the floor like a bowling pin. Kyak Cheeky Incarnation. No one was able to stop the berserk Lee Hyun-sung. At least it looked like that. Proud child. As I said earlier, it is barely history. Lee Hyun-sung's movements were stopped by a powerful status. The supreme god of light Surya had recovered his strength and was blocking the way. His third eyes might not work properly, but he was still a Lokapala of Vedas. He had the power to stop us. His 4 arms moved and the entire ground shook as the running Lee Hyun-sung was pushed back. He tried running again, but the same thing repeated. The place where you are standing now is a place for humans. A human who keeps repeating the same mistakes. I triggered electrification from Lee Hyun-sung's back. My fist stretched out and struck Surya's torso. Even so, Surya didn't budge. The transparent shield created by the 4 arms smothered all my attacks. Only this much. Are you really trying to see the end of the scenario? It was the power to deny all the history I had accumulated. Electrification and the white pure star energy didn't work. The times have changed, only this much history. There was such a gap despite only 30% of his power being available. What would happen if 100% of the power was opened? Then a new voice was heard. Don't ignore Ajasi. Shin Yusung shouted from the head of the Chimera Dragon. The breath poured out at Shin Yusung's signal. Surya swung his arms and scattered the breath. Lee Hyun-sung leapt through this gap. His steel transformation body collided with Surya. Surya, who had been unmoved by countless attacks, shook for the first time. Yue! Lee Hyun-sung swung his fists towards Surya like a madman. Lee Hyun-sung didn't stop despite the steel transformation around his fists cracking, blood splashing and bones breaking. The 73rd Demon Realm is responding to the will of you and your helpers. A new story about you is being made. The human's will to challenge a god was causing cracks in the defensive wall, a little break. It was a very small crack that human history created. Hyun-sung SSI. Lee Hyun-sung and I didn't miss this gap. As if throwing a grenade, Lee Hyun-sung threw my body that had become small through miniaturization. I broke through the barrier created by Surya's arms and rushed to Duke Birkin. Duke Birkin turned his head with surprise while I activated and my side pierced his neck. The participant Demon King of Salvation has killed the participant Duke Birkin. I did it. Along with the triumphant victory, countless system messages flowed into my head. Before I could read the messages, a power squeezed at me. At the last moment, I saw Surya's face. You have died. Chapter 266, Episode 50, Doctor's Story 3. My vision blackened before coming back. It felt like my consciousness had experienced a power outage. I blinked blankly, but only the dark ceiling was visible. What happened? I took deep breaths and moved my heavy head as I started thinking. I was participating in the second round of the Demon King selection. I killed Duke Birkin, and at almost the same time, I was killed by Surya. Then the system messages poured out. Did I win the second round? Or did I lose? I thought about it, but I wasn't sure. You have taken away the enemy's sentence and won the game. I seem to have heard this message. Your sentence was taken away, and you have lost the game. I also seem to have heard this message. Maybe it was both. Then which one was first? For now I had no way of knowing. You have died. The only thing I was sure about was this message. I died in the game and awakened in this place. Love you. I slowly rose from my seat, and the place where I was lying was seen more clearly. Numerous lamps were set up between niches, illuminating the vast darkness. It was an unfamiliar place I had never visited before. There was a sign stating 000100 in the place where I stood and large bookshelves around the sign. There was the smell of books. It was reminiscent of a university library. Library? Why was I here? I pulled out a book on the closest shelf and turned a page. After Lee Seal's death, Yu Jonghyuk thought he should die many times. He could never win against them with talent and skills alone. The end of the scenario wasn't visible, and the power of the constellations was unbelievably strong. Revenge for Lee Jihai and Lee Sealhwa couldn't be achieved. Yu Jonghyuk thought in the midst of his despair. The sentences in the familiar style were lined up, and I read the sentences as if they were being sucked in. What if I have a sponsor? It was a scene that didn't appear in detail in Ways of Survival. Even so, I knew this scene. It was because the scene was defeated dozens or hundreds of times in my imagination. The constellation wants you to be his incarnation. This was the first time Yu Jonghyuk received his sponsor. Yu Jonghyuk in the zeroth regression repeatedly trained to his limit without a sponsor, but had to kneel in front of the incarnation. A new attribute, regressor, will blossom. It was the story of when Yu Jonghyuk first became a regressor. I reflexively closed the book and looked at the title. Yu Jonghyuk, 56th record of the zeroth round. I suddenly had an idea of what this place was. As my eyes became accustomed to the darkness, the surroundings looked better. This was the library where all the records of Ways of Survival were gathered. I muttered in a slightly weary manner. It seems to be more than 3,149. Ways of Survival was long, but not to this extent. This huge space was filled with books. I wasn't sure if I could read half the books even if I devoted my whole life to it. Then I got a headache. The curled memories were breaking out like an eggshell cracking. This place that had just seemed unfamiliar now felt familiar. The lamps in the niches and the shelves of books. I slowly got goosebumps and an intense feeling struck my head. I had already come to this place once. When was it? When? Kim Dak-ya. The voice echoed through the library. I knew this tone. The fourth wall. Then the entire library shook faintly. Yo Urso Ul was in danger. Danger. I call Iju. The fourth wall called me here. It wasn't difficult to figure out what he meant. Perhaps, are you also in here? Correct. How do I get out of here? Where is the exit? Hey. I called out a few more times, but the fourth wall didn't answer. He was a guy who slept when sleepy, so he might have fallen asleep again this time. I had to find a way out myself. You can't use Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint in this location. You can't use Bookmark in this location. All my available skills were blocked. I couldn't see the end of the library no matter how far I walked. I couldn't see the exit as I looked to the north, south, east, and west. I became convinced that I couldn't escape and felt a drug-like comfort. Heaven. Everywhere I looked was Ways of Survival. It was a world full of Ways of Survival. I might have been happy if I came here before the scenario started. It was a story that would never end no matter how much I read. I wouldn't go hungry because I was just a soul. There was no way for me to go out, so I should read more books. I didn't know. There could be a way in the book. I pulled the books out of the shelves, stacked them next to each other, and started reading them. I looked for a while and once again realized that Ways of Survival was Ways of Survival. There are too many explanations. The surroundings were quiet, so the speed at which I read the book was faster than usual. However, I didn't read it roughly. Like a gourmet long starved of meat, I cut every sentence into pieces and relished them. That jerk, he was cute at this time. Damn, I should have killed him a bit more in the beginning. Some of the stories were already known, and some weren't. This information was forgotten. What? There was something like this. There was no one in this place, and I naturally spoke to myself. I wasn't conscious about any listeners. Thus, I read a few more books. There was a sense of pride in my heart and warmth rose. Suddenly, I felt weak. Why didn't I just give up and stay here? It wouldn't be too bad if I never woke up from here. There was no scenario here to kill me. I didn't need to see the constellations. After reading a number of books, I ran past some bookshelves, reading those in the middle. Yu Jonghyuk sometimes thought this. If I hadn't met that guy on the bridge, what would have happened? Or if I had killed him there, what would have happened to my remaining life? I saw the familiar phrases and reflexively looked at the title of the book. Yu Jonghyuk, 12th Record of the Third Round. As expected, it was the third round. I opened a few more books, some of them were written about me. Damn Kim Dokja. Some books contained, Kim Dokja, wake up, Kim Dokja. Some good words were written. In some books, nothing was written. The sentences were filtered and couldn't be read. Some of the episodes had blank pages. It was as if the story hadn't been recorded yet. All books were organized in accordance to the order of the rounds. It was as if someone had arranged it so I could find it easily when needed. But who? I just had this thought when I saw something on the other side of the bookshelf. I reflexively put the book back and looked. It was a very short moment, but there seemed to be the shadow of a person. Who's there? The sound of footsteps started heading further away. I started chasing the sound. I almost stumbled over a few books on the floor but persistently followed the shadow. The signs of the bookshelves changed quickly. From 0000100 to 100,200. Then it was 200,300. Yu Jonghyuk, 373rd record of the 24th round. Yu Jonghyuk, 473rd record of the 31st round. Countless books passed by quickly. Yu Jonghyuk, 573rd record of the 27th round. Yu Jonghyuk, 681st record of the 12th round. I was a bit breathless and still couldn't see the end of the books. It was obviously a soul body, but I was breathless. I kept running. This was an opportunity. If I missed this person here, I wouldn't be able to catch it again. How far did I go? I was getting a bit closer. Wait! The moment I shouted, the floor in front of me suddenly disappeared. My body failed to overcome inertia and fell forward. I might have fallen down if I hadn't reflexively grabbed the bookshelf next to me. Yu Jonghyuk, 1863rd record of the 22nd round. Yu Jonghyuk, 1863rd record of the 23rd round. Yu Jonghyuk, 1863rd record of the 26th round. Books poured towards me head. It hurt as much as Yu Jonghyuk's fists. I barely dug myself out of the pile of books, and the shadow I was pursuing had already disappeared. Shit. Instead, there was a cliff in front of my eyes. I couldn't see the bottom. I stared down the cliff like I was possessed. This was the end of the library. It was the end of all the stories. I stared at it and felt the urge to throw myself in. I felt like I could know something I had long wondered about. If I could go inside there. The moment my body tilted towards the bottom of the cliff, someone tightly grabbed my shoulders. You will die if you fall. It is really beyond the wall. Slap, 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 slap. Wake up. Slap, 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 slap. Yu Jonghyuk SSI, stop it. Dr. SC's face is swollen. What the hell is happening? He is still breathing. I think there was a shock to the soul. Yu Jonghyuk frowned at Yu Sanga's words and stood up. The swollen Kim Dokja was lying on the ground. The bear-like Lee Hyun-sung was holding onto him and crying out madly. Dokja SSI, wake up, please. The moment the second round was completed, the mythical battlefield suddenly disintegrated. All participants and helpers of the Yu Jonghyuk Kim Dokja industrial complex were left in front of the wastes of the industrial complex. Yu Sanga stared at the people standing in the same camp, 2 dogs and 1 pretty boy. Also Han Myungo. You were alive, Department Head Nim. Why Yu Sanga SSI? Han Myungo started sweating and retreated. Yu Sanga stared at Jang Haeyoung. Are you on our side? Alai. Jang Haeyoung met Yu Sanga's eyes and stuttered in a confused manner. He didn't know how to introduce himself. Then Jang Haeyoung caught sight of Shin Yusung. Ah, weren't you in that video? You know me. Jang Haeyoung recalled the scenes of the 73rd Demon King scenario thanks to Shin Yusung and figured out who they were. I'm a real fan. Wow, I can't believe I'm meeting the incarnations of Earth. Jang Haeyoung's eyes were glowing as he shook Yu Sanga's hand. Yu Sanga smiled lightly and stared into the air. By the way, did we win or lose? Only one unknown system message was floating in the air. We are currently determining the winning team of the second round. Jang Haeyoung said, I think Kim Dokja killed him first, then shouldn't we win? But our sentence was stolen. Yu Jonghyuk shook his head. Kim Dokja was faster. The words filled with strong conviction caused Jang Haeyoung and Yu Sanga to brighten. It was likely to be true if Yu Jonghyuk said so. Then a cloud of dust appeared on the other side of the wilderness. It was a scene filled with a powerful status. There were no need to ask about the identity of the incoming beings. Yu Jonghyuk stared at the sky, and his expression hardened. We are currently determining the winning team of the second round. It was still the only sentence floating in the sky. It had been the same for 30 minutes. Be prepared. Something is wrong. In the main scenario, the fast-paced bureau would never spend 30 minutes to determine the winner. In other words, this situation was intended by someone. Someone didn't want the scenario to end this way. The present 73rd Demon Realm was filled with an enormous amount of probability due to the mythical battlefield. Yu Jonghyuk pulled out his black demon sword and declared, this time it isn't a game. The terrible roar of the thunder-eating bird filled the sky. The constellations who no longer received penalties from the game were coming over here. Chapter 267, Dokja's Story 4. A strong hand grabbed my shoulders. I reflexively turned my body and punched out. There was a thud and my fist was caught in a big hand. Oh, did you come to fight? The darkness was lifted, and a white face was revealed. I saved you once before. You must have already forgotten. It was a face I knew, even it was someone I killed. Why are you here? Are you really asking because you don't know? It was an ambiguous face where it wasn't clear if the person was male or female. It gave me a feeling of incomprehensibility. This presence shouldn't be here. Nirvana Mobius. A long time ago, he was eaten by the fourth wall. What happened to the beings who were eaten by the fourth wall? I had this question from the first moment the fourth wall ate something. It is as you can see, this is what happened. Nirvana laughed. We hadn't met for a while, but Nirvana was just the same as our first meeting. If there was one difference, the letters making up ways of survival was hanging on his body like a shackle. You've been alive here the whole time. It's hard to say this is living. Looking closer, Nirvana's voice didn't flow out of his mouth. I couldn't even say it was a voice. Nirvana stared up at the air. I'm living thanks to that damn parasitic wall. At this moment, the warning of the fourth wall echoed. Nirvana talking too much. Nirvana laughed. His eyes were bitter, but there was a strange, uplifting sensation from him. I followed Nirvana's gaze and looked around the library. There were numerous types of letter forms that made up a world. In this place, everything was ways of survival. Now you know everything you've ever wanted. There is no entity that knows everything, just like you. Nirvana really seemed like a mysterious sage. I felt strange. For the first time, a character learnt the secrets of this world. How do you feel? Now you know that you are a character in a novel. Nirvana's expression changed at my provocation. A novel, is that what you really think? Nirvana looked at me with pitying eyes and his lips shook several times. However, no sound emerged. I was frustrated. What is it? Finish it to the end. Nirvana smiled quietly. I like your story. I was embarrassed by the unexpected words. To be precise, I like the story you have changed. The sentences that feel your will, the context that contains things you don't say. What are you saying now? I stepped back in an awkward manner. I looked at his bastard and remembered his words before his death. It isn't just me. All the beings here love your story. Who else is in this place? The air started shaking, and a few dark shards fell from the ceiling. The vibrations were like something giant was burrowing this way. Nirvana picked up the fragments and frowned. There is no time, so you better move quickly. It isn't good to talk too much here. Something terrible will happen. Nirvana started walking before I could ask anything. I followed Nirvana while looking back at the cliff I had almost fallen off. The vibrations in the library were spreading from the cliff. Wait, where are you going? There is someone who wants to meet you the most. What's who? It is the existence who organized the shelves from zero. Organized the shelves? We aren't just here to play. If we don't clean up properly, you won't remember it. Wait, what does that mean? You don't need to understand. I turned and saw new bookshelves appearing. The library was really spacious. Ways of survival increased the number of rounds that were skipped in the second half. Perhaps this library had arranged all those omissions. A signpost saying 000100 appeared in front of me. It's here, then have a good conversation. I turned the corner and saw a familiar creature. It was the minimum size compared to what I saw in the past, but it was definitely the existence I knew. 12 tentacles were being used to pick up books on the floor. There was a squid-like body controlling those tentacles. There was something like horn-rimmed spectacles placed on a small hole that was presumed to be the eye. You were here. The squid looked this way. The 12 tentacles nodded simultaneously. The poor truth-seeker came. It was the Eater of Dreams. In Dark Castle, I defeated it with the help of Chiak Yungyong and the Fourth Wall. He was swallowed up by the Fourth Wall and ended up in this space. Did you want to see me? I want to help you. Something that was presumed to be the squid's mouth looked pleased. I didn't know how to respond to this different species gesture. I don't know what you're saying all of a sudden. I need some time to figure out the situation. There isn't much time. Why are you trying to help me? With your help, I have reached the truth of the universe. Noble beings will pay back their debts. Noble beings. In fact, it wasn't strange for the Eater of Dreams to call itself that. This squid was strong enough to chew up the constellations making a fuss outside. Then, I have one thing to ask. Go ahead. Who created this library? At this moment, huge sparks popped up and my body crashed into a bookshelf. 12 tentacles stretched out at the same time, holding my body to the bookcase. He looked at the falling books and the Eater of Dreams pushed up his glasses. It does not constitute a question. Ask another question. I bit my lips and thought about it. It was meaningless to ask a question related to ways of survival right now. It was possible to read the second revision, and there was a way to come back to this space and read the related questions. In other words, I had to ask a question that wasn't recorded in Ways of Survival. It was also a question that the outer God had to answer. Finding the question wasn't difficult. Who is secretive plotter? Strong sparks once again sprung up. I was worried that my body would be thrown back again, but fortunately, the sparks were weaker this time. Are you curious about the great plotter? The tentacles moved very slowly. He is one of the oldest beings in this universe. I was hearing information about secretive plotter for the first time. The most solitary being in the universe, the one who fights against the oldest dream. How do I know if you are just saying this? Let me know the right modifier. A modifier is meaningless for him. However, he will help you if you want. Help how? Make an otherworld covenant with him. The otherworld covenant. I knew what it was. In the fifth scenario, the absolute throne that I destroyed was a type of covenant. However, there was never a good end to a covenant in Ways of Survival. I can't do that. A few tentacles nodded like they were heads. I thought so. You hate higher-level beings. I won't be able to create the story I want if I borrow your strength. You are now someone who can't be controlled. I felt strange. I didn't think an outer God would say this. You need to think again about your anger. In order to reach the end, it is necessary to properly consider the things you can use. Dujujuro. This world is heading towards black. It hasn't been written yet, but it has already been written. The great plotter can help you, so that you can find the right way. I believe in the stories I have accumulated. Dujujuro. The gap in vibrations was gradually shortening. The Eater of Dreams spoke like he was resigned to my stubborn will. Unfortunately, there is no more time. Remember that the great plotter is always waiting for you. One of the tentacles wound around me. Meanwhile, the other tentacles moved quickly and started looking for something on the shelves. The book he found was Yu Jonghyuk, 38th record of the third round. The pages turned quickly. I realized what was going to happen and hurriedly opened my mouth. Wait a minute, I still have something to ask. Goodbye, Black Apostle. If the probability allows it, we will meet again. The pages of the book opened, and sentences appeared on the blank pages in real time. Yu Jonghyuk had a thought. Wake up quickly, Kim Dokja. Otherwise, everyone will die. Damn it, this was why I was forced to leave. The next moment, I was sucked into the context of the sentences. The battlefield was a ruin. Yu Jonghyuk wiped his bloody lips while looking at the bodies of the incarnations on the ground and the approaching constellations. The combination of the transcendent dog breaking the Sky Master and the constellation Asu was amazing. They didn't mind their broken bodies and were biting at the rushing great-grade constellations. Thanks to this, Cleopatra in the front was a mess, while King Oedipus had nasty bite wounds all over his body. It was reasonably okay when dealing with great-grade constellations. Disgusting. You dare to call yourselves constellations when you can't even deal with such bugs. However, the narrative-grade constellations watching from the rear came out, and the situation completely reversed. Shin Yusung's Chimera Dragon and the Thunder-Eating Bird crashed down. Lee Hyun-sung had his steel transformation shattered by the general of Vanara's fist, and he was rolling on the ground. Yu Sanga was somehow managing to fight despite coughing up blood several times, but this seemed to be her limit. Asu was stabbed by the founder of humanity's primitive spear and staggered to the ground. Asu's incarnation body was stabbed, and the Breaking the Sky Master also staggered. They opened the limits allowed by the probability of the 25th scenario. It wasn't 100% power, but the powerful status that the parties present brought out filled the entire demon world with dazzling white sparks. This was the strength of the beings called constellations. They were beings who came from the highest place in this world. Yu Jonghyuk asked, "Why are you doing this?" The constellation, Supreme God of Light, is laughing quietly. It looks like you don't have to have the history of being defeated by bugs. Surya's cheeks subtly twitched at these words. The opening of the Lokapala's status caused the expressions of the constellations to change. The opening of an excessive force caused sparks to appear around Surya's body. However, Surya looked confident like he could afford it. Qang. He released his status and dealt one blow. However, the whole area became a terrible mess. The nearby structures were turned to ashes and the fleeing incarnations were destroyed. People collapsed while blood emerged from all orifices. Some constellations are dissatisfied with the progression of the scenario. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire is greatly angry. The Demon King, Overlord of the Great Demon Castle, is pleased. The Demon King, Maker of Discord, is excited. Many constellations are excited about the great battle. Lee Hyun-sung was defending in front, and blood poured from his ears and mouth. Yu Jonghyuk grabbed Lee Hyun-sung's shoulder. "Back off, Lee Hyun-sung. This is an opponent you can't go against." Lee Hyun-sung reflexively tried to say something, but even that seemed hard. Yu Jonghyuk left the faltering Lee Hyun-sung behind him and walked forward while wiping the blood off the black demon sword. It was a desperate situation. His sage's eyes was analyzing the battlefield in real time. The number of constellations visible at the moment was almost 20. Some of the great-grade constellations were eliminated from the field, but it wasn't a number he could win against. "Young disciple, no. You will die if you open that power. The Breaking the Sky Master instinctively realized what Yu Jonghyuk was going to do. However, Yu Jonghyuk's will was stubborn. Yu Jonghyuk slowly raised his power and huge sparks appeared. He knew he wasn't their opponent. However, it was always like this. Once you reach Transcendent Stage 3, you can gain the power to destroy constellations. The words left behind by his teacher were the only comfort that Yu Jonghyuk now believed in. This time, he was using a shortcut to raise his power. This didn't mean the power was a lie because he used a shortcut. A dazzling aura burst from Yu Jonghyuk's body. Soft hair poured down like a waterfall while his large size became a smaller and sleeker body. He took the form that allowed him to practice the ultimate Breaking the Sky swordsmanship. Yu Sanga stared at the scene from behind and couldn't help opening her mouth. Yu Jonghyuk SSI. Yu Jonghyuk slowly turned back, his long hair cut off by the black demon sword. The unease of the face had changed, but it was clearly Yu Jonghyuk. No, it was even more than before. Yu Jonghyuk's gaze stayed on Kim Dokja's face for a moment. Take him away. Yu Jonghyuk turned his head and wiped the blade of the black demon sword. The constellations who were laughing at him were approaching. King Oedipus opened his mouth. Foolish transcendent. This is the cost of going against the constellations. You will die here. Yu Jonghyuk replied while still wiping his blade. I guess so. However, some of you will die too. Haha, it is useless. The extinction of an incarnation body. Yu Jonghyuk didn't listen. Instead, he was reminded of Kim Dokja's words. Don't give up on this life. Then in the next life, half of you will die. Yu Jonghyuk's voice rang out quietly through the battlefield. Yu Jonghyuk raised his head along with the black demon sword. The footsteps of the constellations stopped for the first time. The power of transcendence was threatening the surroundings. In the next life, all of you will die. The black demon sword's cry seemed to touch the sky. The expressions of the constellations stiffened as Yu Jonghyuk concluded his words. You will die forever. Chapter 268, Dokja's Story 5. Arrogant Transcendent, what bullshit. At the beginning of the showdown, Yu Jonghyuk moved. The scorn of the constellations and the overwhelming disadvantage in power weren't important to the present Yu Jonghyuk. From the moment he entered the third round, he had been focused on only killing the enemies in front of him. An aura spread from Yu Jonghyuk, and some of the great grade constellations in front murmured to themselves. However, most of the constellations still looked down on Yu Jonghyuk. No matter how transcendent, he was just a human. The constellations had no reason to lose in a situation where they had an overwhelming advantage in numbers. This became the last thought of the General of Venara. The exclusive skill, Giant Body Transformation LV-6 is activated. Giant Body Transformation was used, and Yu Jonghyuk narrowed the distance to the constellations in an instant. Yu Jonghyuk shot forward like a meteor. By the time the General of Venara realized the sword and hurriedly raised his huge double-edged sword, his head was already cut by the black demon sword and flying through the air. You dare! The General of Venara's eyes widened, and he spoke in his true voice, even with his cut neck. Yu Jonghyuk cut the flying head in half, using the black demon sword. It was a ridiculous end. The excessively concentrated magic power was melting Yu Jonghyuk's blood. It was the result of invoking Transcendence Stage 3 to the limit. The maximum time he could stay in this state was 10 minutes. In these 10 minutes, Yu Jonghyuk had to defeat everyone. Next, the death of the General of Venara was a great shock to the constellations. The constellations didn't disappear with the death of their incarnation bodies. However, there was no one who wanted to lose their incarnation body in vain. A fatal death permanently damaged the constellations. All the constellations became stiff. Yu Jonghyuk utilized this short gap to attempt a second attack. The black demon sword left a dark trajectory as it moved and cut off the wings of a giant bird. The thunder-eating bird let out a loud cry. Then the constellation started to move. You! The the founder of humanity's primitive spear aimed at Yu Jonghyuk. It was a blow that would have turned any normal incarnation to powder. However, Yu Jonghyuk received this blow. The impact ruptured his right forearm muscle, and the force pushed at his entire body. Blood poured from his mouth, but Yu Jonghyuk didn't lose focus. Excessive concentration has expanded the category of the attributes. The exclusive attribute, ruler of amusement, is activated. His concentration awakened the power of the character. All the incoming constellations became data and flowed into Yu Jonghyuk's mind. At this moment, the world was a game to Yu Jonghyuk. Yu Jonghyuk avoided the attacks of the constellations with restrained movements and fought back using magic power. Kuak, the founder of humanity, screamed as his fingers were cut by the black demon sword. Yu Jonghyuk's black demon sword let out a deafening roar as it dug into the gap. Breaking the sky swordsmanship. Destruction skill. Breaking the sky meteor. The sword rose from the ground to the heavens, stabbing the sky like a thunderbolt. The branches of the sword energy hid in the dark clouds and created thunder. The thunder poured from the night sky and struck the constellations like meteorites. Dozens of thunderbolts fell from the sky, and the incarnation bodies of the constellations were pierced. It was a blow containing the power of Transcendence Stage 3. Yu Jonghyuk watched the constellations struggling with the pain and felt himself dying. The experiences of the third round went through his mind. It was a short round, even so many things happened. The story, one who inherited the name of the king, is crying out. As if responding to his feelings, the stories starting speaking. It was as if every story had its own will. Most of them weren't stories he had accumulated alone. The story person who opposes the miracle has begun. A story about returnees. The story paradise of despair has begun. A story earned by preserving the abandoned paradise. The story one who fought against an outer god has begun. The story where he confronted the outer god. The story ruler of the industrial complex has begun. It was a story that he would have normally never achieved. It was a story that was unrelated to the current situation, but it was a story related to someone else. It was a story that could never be achieved alone. The stories started talking at the same time. It was as if they didn't want to finish the story here. Along with the bitter pain, blood poured from Yu Jonghyuk's chest. He didn't even know how he obtained these wounds. There were a few fallen incarnation bodies on the ground. The supreme god of light Surya saw it and spoke. Amazing, you already can't be called a human anymore, child. Yu Jonghyuk's stories emitted a bright light like he was rebelling against the true voice. The story, one who hunted the king of disasters, is roaring. Yu Jonghyuk was a transcendent. The stories were the unique parts making up the constellations. Just having stories didn't mean a person could be equal to the stars in the night sky. Even so, the current light pouring from Yu Jonghyuk's body was brighter than any constellation in the place. Yu Jonghyuk looked at the stories flowing from his body. Some were known and some were unfamiliar. There was a story that couldn't be obtained again. The story Life and Death Colleagues wants to continue. He couldn't help glancing at Yu Sanga and the other party members. He also saw Kim Dokja on Lee Hyun-sung's back. Yu Jonghyuk gripped the black demon sword that was slipping from his hands. He couldn't die. He couldn't die in a place like this. He used the last of his strength to point the trembling sword at Surya. Surya laughed as if the sight was interesting. However, it is only a human story. Surya released a bright light as he used the stories he accumulated over thousands of years. It was a status that couldn't be resisted. Yu Jonghyuk's short history was shaking in front of those formidable years. Foolish humans who don't know that a god's power is so high. The sunlight that melted everything poured towards Yu Jonghyuk. The scene of the industrial complex being destroyed by the constellations. Incarnations died without being able to rebel. Some people who felt desperate at the sudden disaster appeared up close on the screen. The most horrifying thing was that a man who was covered in injuries and lost one arm was still fighting. The constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is furious. The constellation, queen of the darkest spring, is sorry for the incarnation Yu Jonghyuk. The constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, is pointing a finger to the cowardly constellations. Many constellations are complaining about the constellations on the battlefield. There were countless indirect messages from the constellations, and the Dakibai of the Bureau were listening to them. Among them was Bihyung, the Dakibai in charge of the Demon King selection. What the hell do you mean by this? He was rarely angry or agitated, but now he had the same mind as the constellations in his channel. The second game is the victory of the Yu Jonghyuk Kim Dokja Industrial Complex. There was a time difference, but there is nothing to worry about. Then why not announce the winner? Shortly after the second game, Bihyung contacted the Bureau's approval team directly. However, the only answer he got in return was, "It is being prepared." In the end, the last connection Bihyung had was Baram, the next great Dakibai candidate. There was a crackling sound and Baram's face appeared on the screen. This is the decision of the Bureau. The decision of the Bureau, they were magic words. This is the Bureau's decision. This is the Bureau's decision. Baram, this is the main scenario. There were some things that even the Bureau couldn't touch. Since when did the Bureau interfere with the development of the main scenario? It is also a scenario where a giant story is involved. Baram, don't you know what will happen if you do this? Baram didn't answer. Please tell me, who the hell did this? Is it one of your superiors? Bihyung glanced at Dokgak on the screen. It was clear that Dokgak was associated with this situation. However, this wasn't something that could be done by one or two senior Dakibis. The silent Baram opened his mouth. Are you doubting the great Dakibis right now? Is there any other streamer who can do this beside them? Bihyung, please wake up. Why would they do this? I don't know. Perhaps some bribes were received. Baram frowned. The great Dakibis aren't bound by such private understandings. Then why is this happening? Baram, you must know something. Bihyung. Bihyung instantly flinched. Baram's voice was furious. Bihyung thought there would be a strict scolding, but unexpectedly, Baram just relaxed. It was as if he understood Bihyung. Baram on the screen was also watching the scenes of the Demon King selection. Baram's lips slowly opened. Yes, maybe one of the great Dakibis created this delay, as you said. Then, however, even a great Dakibai can only do it up to there. It is impossible for a great Dakibai to endure the storm that will be created from intervening in a scenario of this magnitude. So who did it? At this moment, there was a loud noise and the ceiling of the Bureau shook. It sounded like a huge dragon passing by. It was the sound of probability moving. Bihyung's expression hardened. Don't tell me something so ridiculous. Do you understand now? The existence that could move this probability. There was only one such existence in the star stream. He didn't even know if it should be called an existence. Baram drove in the wedge. The will of the star stream wanted this. This is ridiculous. There is no other way to explain it. Bihyung's words were taken away, and he stared blankly at the screen. Kim Dokja's party was shown on the screen. Originally, they should be excited about winning. Now they looked terrible as they lay on the ground. It was a confrontation with constellations supported by the nebula. It was a ridiculous fight from the beginning, but the party fought well. They played a game against powerful constellations and finally won the competition that gave them a giant story. Now they were going to be losers just because there wasn't a winner announcement. It was just because the star stream wanted this. Resentment mixed with anger filled Bihyung's eyes. Then why does a streamer exist? It was the first time Bihyung felt helplessness since becoming a Dakibai. His fingertips trembled as the parts of the scenario he touched fell. If we can't stop this nonsensical development, what are the streamers of this world worth? Bihyung. Baram saw Bihyung's sad eyes and slowly spoke. Streamers are also part of the story. The desperate Bihyung stared at the screen. Yu Jonghyuk was gradually melting in the dazzling sunlight. Now the story was leaving the streamer's hand. Thus, there was only one thing to believe in. Many constellations are looking at one constellation. The man on Lee Hyun-sung's back was shaking. On the screen, the man was slowly opening his eyes. Chapter 269, Dokja's Story 6. Bot Bayet Barrett. My cheeks hurt. Barrett. There was a bit more pain. I felt something violently shaking in my arms. I opened my eyes at the exact moment the earth let out a tremendous ringing sound. I reflexively raised my head and could see brilliant flashes of light. The sparks of probability in the sky were falling like lightning strikes all over the demon world. Dokja SI. I woke up the moment I heard Yu Sanga's voice. Like a disconnected current being reconnected, thoughts started to flow through my head. There were broken incarnation bodies everywhere. No matter how I looked, this wasn't the mythical battlefield. All the fallen bodies were living human beings. The industrial complex being torn apart by the thunder-eating bird could be seen. Did the constellations come? Yu Sanga, who was about to say something, wiped her bloody cheeks and nodded. Yes. A system message was floating in the air, while the party members were in tatters. The winner still hasn't been announced. It was a situation I expected thanks to the last message of Yu Jonghyuk in the library. However, I didn't expect the situation to be so serious. Kaku. Lee Hyun-sung suffered a serious injury on his side and staggered. I quickly got off Lee Hyun-sung's back and bought a few recovery items from the Dakibai bag. I gave the Great Return pill to Lee Hyun-sung and Yu Sanga, who were the most seriously injured. Shin Yu-sung had no wounds, but her magic power was depleted, so I gave her an advanced magic power recovery medicine. Trauma medicine was given to Han Myungo, breaking the Sky Master and Jang Haeyoung. It cost over 400,000 coins, but now wasn't the time to worry about that. Ajasi. Shin Yu-sung drank the potion and looked up at me while leaning against the rock. I looked at Shin Yu-sung for a moment before saying, "You should rest here, by the way." In a distant place, the deafening roar of the constellations was shaking the earth. I could tell the number exceeded 12 just by the status. At this moment, I had an ominous feeling. The constellations were gathered, so how could the party members flee to here? Yu Jonghyuk. None of the party members answered. I looked around the battlefield as an explosion occurred. Everyone except for Yu Jonghyuk was here. In addition, someone was fighting the constellations. The fourth wall is shaking faintly. That stupid bastard. Ajasi, no. Shin Yu-sung clung to my waist when I tried to run forward. Ajasi will die. You'll die there. She was an always straightforward and brave child. Fear was deeply permeated in the child's eyes. Shin Yu-sung burst into tears as I pulled away from her. In the saturated battlefield, the tears scattered like dust. Perhaps this child had seen it. It was the fear of a giant story that humans could never overcome. Please take care of Yu-sung. I left Shin Yu-sung to Jang Haeyoung, who was in a good condition, and activated Way of the Wind. I heard a voice calling out to me from behind, but had no time to turn around. I moved forward, and the pressure of the status, bursting from the center of the battlefield, became stronger. It was a fearsome storm of magic that I had never experienced before. The center definitely contained Yu Jonghyuk. Kim Dokja thought, is there a way? The pages of Ways of Destruction flashed in my head. It isn't possible. That method is too unreasonable. I bit my lips. I predicted that this situation might happen. However, the time passed too quickly and I had been asleep for too long. I was late. Yu Jonghyuk was still far away and the wind wasn't on my side. I could buy a new skill from the Dakibai bag, but I can't guarantee its utilization. In the end, I made a decision. I will invest 3 million coins into my strength, physique, agility, and magic power. Your total stats have grown abnormally. The coins you invested have allowed you to cross the stats limit of the scenario. A fuller probability will release some of the stat constraints for this scenario. The growth of the stats value compared to the invested coins will be randomly adjusted. A tremendous amount of sparks jumped from my body. It felt like my muscles were tearing and growing bigger. There was the feeling of my bone density changing, and a terrible pain came over me. Cough. I had put it off until now due to the poor cost-to-value ratio, but there was no other way. Your mind can't cope with your evolving incarnation body. The exclusive skill, fourth wall, is activated. Your incarnation body is evolving to a new level. Since the early scenarios, the overall stats didn't have a big influence on combat. It was because stories, stigmas, and skills had much more influence. In addition, since the number of coins per level after level 100 was exponentially larger, it was more advantageous to buy a skill using the same amount of coins. Now the situation was different. All your stats have exceeded 200. Your incarnation body can handle a bigger status. I needed a strong body, not a powerful skill. Your agility has reduced the air resistance. Magic power is opening up the blocked bloodstream. A huge amount of coins was transforming my incarnation body. Your strength is causing an explosive change. The frequency of my footsteps and the speed at which the landscape passed in my vision changed drastically. Yu Zhanghyuk. Of course, it was impossible to surpass the constellations or transcendence. Still, it was enough to confront them for a while. Many constellations are envying your incarnation body. I crossed the wilderness at a tremendous speed, and the center of the battlefield finally entered my eyes. At the center, I could see a dying person. You idiot, what are you doing? In front of Surya's radiant light, Yu Zhanghyuk was dying. I didn't know where his left arm had gone, and steam was rising from his charred body. Even so, Yu Zhanghyuk was gripping the black demon sword without moving an inch. Yu Zhanghyuk's head moved slowly towards me. His voice wasn't heard, as if he had no strength to open his lips. The fourth wall is greatly shaken. The words of the mass production maker came to mind. The constellations were also just part of this great story. They were also lonely and had to do these things. Bullshit. Get lost. The founder of humanity stood in front of me and wielded the primitive spear. The exclusive skill Electrification LV 12+2 has been activated. White lightning exploded from my fist, and the battlefield filled with a blue light. Qak. The confused constellations supported the thrown-back Manu and raised their status. The magic power poured towards me like a tsunami. My strengthened body withstood the mighty power of the constellations. The flesh of my fist cracked and blood flowed down, but it was still bearable. The constellations blinked as the dust settled down. They didn't know I had this much power and were shocked. Stop him! A blue-white energy flew towards the constellations. In an instant, there were abrasions on my back and thighs, as well as a long stab in my side. Yu Zhanghyuk. My cry didn't reach him properly. Yu Zhanghyuk had fallen to his knees and his life was now flickering. No magic power could be felt from him. Yu Zhanghyuk was dying. I held my breath and then shouted with the greatest true voice possible. Asmodeus. The true voice burst out and the constellations blocked their ears for a moment. The great grade constellations couldn't stop and tears poured from my eyes. I shouted again. If you are a demon king, keep your promise. The situation was so big that I didn't expect much. He was a shrewd guy and should know how dangerous it was to take my side right now. However, it was Asmodeus. As if waiting, one star in the sky flashed. There was a storm coming in and something was descending. The demon king of lust and fury has appeared in this world. A tremendous probability was flowing, and a colossal presence was manifesting before my eyes as an incarnation body. A little girl surrounded by a dark aura raised her head. It was the king of the demon world who immediately subdued the transcendent Yu Zhanghyuk. Later, he would join one of the worst organizations in the world, the Seekers of the End. The Demon King. The 32nd Demon King, Asmodeus started running wild. He laughed and a huge rake appeared at the fingers of the Demon King. Asmodeus, Bloody grip scraped through the area and tore at the constellations. Quack! The Mad Demon King. What the hell is this? The constellations turned their gaze towards me, and I triggered Way of the Wind to snatch Yu Jonghyuk. Chase him. The constellations started running, but my strengthened incarnation body was a bit faster than them. I ran with all my strength while carrying Yu Jonghyuk on my shoulder. Wake up, please. Yu Jonghyuk was barely breathing. The weight of his body was lighter than usual. He had suffered such severe pain that even the skeleton of his body seemed changed. I listened to his gradually fatting heartbeat and cried out, "Hey, don't mess around. You can recover. Do something." However, Yu Jonghyuk didn't move. I called out to Biyu and bought a few more great return pills. My left hand supported his body while my right hand poured the pills into Yu Jonghyuk's mouth. No effect was visible. He didn't have the strength to swallow it. His breathing slowed and became distant. The tips of Yu Jonghyuk's toes were breaking and his body was disappearing. I used Way of the Wind to wrap around the debris and prevent them from escaping. Even so, I couldn't prevent the dim light from emerging from his heart. I was well aware of this phenomenon. I had read the scene a few hundred times and had to know what it was. Yu Jonghyuk had a thought. Don't think about it. This life ends here. Damn it, don't think about it. Story fragments were falling from Yu Jonghyuk's cheeks. I was scared of this story and slapped his cheek before crying out to the air. Shit, don't go back, you jerk, leave him alone. The sponsor of Incarnation, Yu Jonghyuk, is looking at you. You can still survive. This round isn't over. You can fight back against this guy. I can save you. Yu Jonghyuk's sponsor was silent. This guy always did the same thing. He watched Yu Jonghyuk suffering from death. He placed the soul of a hopelessly broken man back into the world line of the past. The stigma regression LV3 has been activated. It was cruel. Was this really how it ended? How did I get here? Would Yu Jonghyuk really die here? Then a single line emerged. Incarnation, Yu Jonghyuk is looking at his sponsor. Yu Jonghyuk. Yu Jonghyuk, who became so ragged that his shape couldn't be recognized, stared at his sponsor with a single bloody eye. Sparks appeared around his disappearing body. Incarnation, Yu Jonghyuk is resisting his sponsor. All of the stories of Incarnation, Yu Jonghyuk is resisting death. This was something I had never seen in any round. The Incarnation, Yu Jonghyuk, has refused to regress. Chapter 270, Dokja's Story 7. Yu Jonghyuk's entire body was trembling. I can't die. I will never die here. Yu Jonghyuk's desperate, what was being conveyed through Omniscient Reader's viewpoint. Hey you. This Yu Jonghyuk refused to regress. The sponsor of Incarnation, Yu Jonghyuk, is looking at his incarnation. Yu Jonghyuk's sponsor was silent as this situation occurred for the first time. It was a mysterious silence. It seemed to be both angry and sad, or perhaps there was no response. Not long after that, the gaze on Yu Jonghyuk disappeared. The stigma regression LV3 has been cancelled. Crazy, something like this was possible. The light of the stigma disappeared and Yu Jonghyuk once again sagged down. His barely opened eyes closed and his mouth was mumbling something. I felt his desperate will to live. It was Yu Jonghyuk's unique commitment to somehow survive. Yu Jonghyuk's thoughts were heard in my head. Break it down so I can eat. I pulled out another great return pill, turned it to powder and poured it into his mouth. The stories of the fallen man slowly stopped collapsing. It's fine. Yu Jonghyuk was betting everything into this round. He decided to forsake the premise that it was okay to fail a few times and to remain in this world. Perhaps he had lost consciousness, but Yu Jonghyuk didn't say anything else. Instead, the stories wrapped around Yu Jonghyuk's body shone brightly. The story, Life and Death Companions, wants to continue. Life and Death Companions. It was a story that didn't exist for Yu Jonghyuk in the original novel. What is your relationship with Yu Jonghyuk? We are life and death companions. It was at Chungmuro. It was clearly the conversation I had with Gong Pildu. I couldn't help laughing. Now we would really live together or die together. I ran while holding on tightly to Yu Jonghyuk. My party members shouting in the distance could be seen. I felt a hot heat behind me. Together with a fierce wind, fireballs narrowly brushed over my head. The chasing constellations were already right behind me. Did you call the Demon King? Do you know what you have done? The constellations roared as a formidable aura poured towards me. Stupid bastard, now the 73rd demon realm will perish. I shouted at Lee Hyunsung in front of me instead of replying to them. Lee Hyunsung SSI. Yu Jonghyuk's body flew through the air and Lee Hyunsung caught him. At the same time, I turned around and reflexively punched out. A running constellation collided with me and screamed. Electrification struck the tail of the scorpion goddess, and then unbroken faith slashed at the thunder-eating bird. The blade of faith absorbed power and shone brightly. Blood splashed, and I unleashed with all the power of electrification. The number of constellations that followed me was 7. It was a number I couldn't afford by myself. The bigger problem was that the dark clouds in the air were thickening. Dark clouds flocked like a sinister omen, and the stars shining towards the 73rd demon realm disappeared one by one. In fact, this was why I didn't call Asmodeus until now. A series of dark lightning fell from the sky, and the frightened constellations jumped back. Sparks flew in the air and the demon kings descended. Now that Asmodeus was here, nothing was holding back the other demon kings. Unfortunately, the demon kings weren't on my side. The demon king, maker of discord, has appeared in the demon world. The demon king, monarch who is a philosopher about corpses, has appeared in the demon world. The summoning of the incarnation bodies alone seemed to surpass the other constellations. Now there was no one who could help me. The 73rd demon realm is responding to your story. The only thing I could believe in was the stories I had built. Everybody step back. Maintain your strength as much as possible while I buy time. Then one of the party members went wild. There was a roaring sound from my side. Department Head Nim, what? Han Myungo activated one-legged Swift Runner and started running somewhere at a tremendous speed. It was the direction I came from. It was the place that contained Demon King Asmodeus. Demon King Asmodeus laughed cheerfully. Arrows of light struck all over his body and blood flowed from his torn arm. However, only feelings of pleasure and joy could be seen on the face of the little girl. I'm happy this is fun. Many constellations lost their incarnation bodies due to the bloody grip. However, there were still many constellations remaining. The Demon Kings were basically existences equal to narrative-grade constellations. Normal constellations were unknown, but there was no chance for Asmodeus to win against one of the Lakapala, Surya. Surya opened his mouth like he couldn't understand. I wonder why, Demon King of Lust and Fury. There was the sound of a giant drum bursting in the distance. Perhaps the constellations chasing the Demon King of Salvation were having the final showdown. Surya couldn't understand it. Why were these humans still resisting? Why was a Demon King taking sides with a human? Asmodeus smiled like he was slightly exhausted. Surya raised his left hand, and the attacks of the constellation ceased. Asmodeus, why are you siding with trivial humans? Siding, I'm not siding with anyone. Asmodeus grinned while licking the blood on his hands. It just seems fun. Fun? You don't know. What is the story of the Demon King of Salvation? I also saw it. It is a common story. Asmodeus made a big fuss at the words. Ha ha ha, Surya. You must have lost your eyes from all the light pouring out. I told you before. If you want to enjoy the stories for a long time, take good care of your eyesight. I admit that the child is a good one among the new stars. However, it is a normal level in the star stream. He doesn't yet have a myth-level story. Surya frowned as his status spread out. Asmodeus was still laughing. A myth-level story. You have lived for a long time, but you are still judging the stories by that. It is only human history. No evaluation is needed. All stories eventually depart from history. Asmodeus, you played around in the Gourmet Association and now you're saying this. Then do you want to keep going? You will eventually lose your incarnation body. Well, I suppose, but before that, the constellation was narrowing the distance one step at a time, and Asmodeus suddenly opened his mouth. By the way, Surya, why are you obsessed with the demon king of salvation? Obsessed, what do you mean? It isn't just you but the nebulae, isn't that right? It seems you are the one who is blind. At best, it is human history, as you said. Yet you and Vedas keep trying to recruit the demon king of salvation. You failed and now you're trying to kill him. This isn't exactly like a giant nebula. At this point I want to ask something. Why are you doing this? Surya had no words for a moment. There was a subtle emotion on his face. Surya hurriedly raised his right hand as if to hide his feelings. It was a sign for the constellations to attack. At this moment, Asmodeus said, "Wait, I see, Surya. I heard about what happened at the Gourmet Association." Surya's raised hand stopped. The demon king of salvation is pursuing the last scenario. That's why you hate him, right? Surya's fingers trembled, showing his agitation. Asmodeus scoffed at the shaking. It is because you can't get the qualification of the end. A spear of light pierced Asmodeus' body. Asmodeus' lips held a deep ridicule as he was constantly pierced by spears of light. Blood dripped down. The urgently implemented incarnation body was much weaker than usual. Asmodeus held the intestines that were flowing from his torn skin. The human body is really uncomfortable. Asmodeus ignored the incoming constellations and looked up at the sky. Stars could be seen through the dark cloud. The light and darkness in the sky were competing against each other. The strong existences surrounding the 73rd demon realm were moving. Asmodeus had lived for a long time, but he hadn't seen something like this before. Today, something tremendous was happening in the demon world. Surya's spear of light moved, and the constellations poured magic power towards Asmodeus. The moment that Asmodeus' incarnation body was going to die. Dujujujado. A cloud of dust obscured the view of the constellation. The astonished constellations paused for a moment, and someone embraced Asmodeus' small body. Even Asmodeus was surprised this time. He had lived for many years but had never been saved by anyone. You. Han Mungo was running while carrying him. One arm and a part of Han Mungo's left arm had disappeared from the constellation's attacks. Asmodeus muttered with a bemused expression, "Why?" He knew the identity of this person, but Asmodeus couldn't understand why this person came here. Han Mungo might be a member of his household, but this loyalty. Han Mungo strongly hugged Asmodeus without answering. A blind and big heart could be felt. The emotions weren't directed at Asmodeus. Asmodeus smiled as he was held in Han Mungo's arms. Really, this scenario is truly interesting. I'm sorry, everyone. I think you have to come with me. The moment Kim Dokja said this, Lee Hyun-sung was the first to stand up. I was waiting. Yu Sanga and the Breaking the Sky Master followed while the frightened Shin Yu-sung clenched her fists. Asu, who was the size of a guinea pig, barked. It was a humbling power, but they were determined. Humans didn't back down in front of the status of the constellations. There was an explosion and the battle began. One blow broke bones, 2 blows caused a deep wound, and 3 blows couldn't guarantee their life. The Demon Kings were making things more and more chaotic. The Demon Kings flew through the air like released strings. Kyuhyuk, it was Lee Hyun-sung who flopped down first. The Chimera Dragon screamed as its wings were broken. Jang Haeyoung sat down and watched all of it. Jang Haeyoung was overcome by overwhelming helplessness and couldn't move. The Breaking the Sky swordsmanship that Jang Haeyoung learnt was too weak. The techniques he learnt through the wall weren't enough to deal with the constellations. Jang Haeyoung held the place that was hit by the Demon King and gazed at the fighting Kim Dokja. The Demon King of Salvation he had long wanted to meet was struggling. His ribs and right arm were broken. Jang Haeyoung wanted to fight together. Only the stars in the sky were shining without mercy. There were so many stars, so why wasn't anyone helping them? The exclusive skill, Unidentified Wall, is activated. In fact, he had done it many times already. He sent messages several times to the modifiers Kim Dokja mentioned, but there was no reply. Nevertheless, Jang Haeyoung kept sending unanswered prayers to the constellations. Please, please, just one person. The Unidentified Wall asks, do you really want to help? The wall was slightly vibrating. The Unidentified Wall asks, do you really want to help? He nodded. I want to help. I can accept any price, please. The next moment, numerous messages appeared in front of Jang Haeyoung's eyes. Hello, do you perhaps know Kim Dokja? He is looking for constellations. Hello, constellation. You don't know me, but I have to ask a favor if Kim Dokja. Constellation, please help me. Kim Dokja is in danger. Please help, please. Jang Haeyoung read the hundreds of messages that surfaced in front of him with a blank expression. They were all messages from himself. There are currently 124 messages waiting to be sent. To be exact, they were messages he thought he had sent. WI. Goosebumps covered his entire body. It was the reason why a reply didn't come from numerous constellations. The Unidentified Wall said, I was told not to send it. Who? The Unidentified Wall says, it is an existence higher than me. He didn't know who it was. However, Jang Haeyoung could see what he had to do now. Send them, right now, send all of them. The Unidentified Wall was silent for a moment. The Unidentified Wall is sighing, don't regret it. The next moment, his head was going to burst from the pain. 124 messages have been sent. Like water being discharged from a dam, numerous messages were released from Jang Haeyoung and flew through the sky. Time passed. 1 minute, 2 minutes, Jang Haeyoung stared up at the sky without releasing the string of hope. The constellation One-Eyed Maitreya has entered the channel. Then somebody answered. Similar to a meteor shower, the sound of people entering the channel didn't stop. The constellation Brash Swamp Predator has entered the channel. The constellation Coi Il Pill has entered the channel. The constellation First Spiritualist of Joseon has entered the channel. The constellation Goryeo's First Sword has entered the channel. The constellation of a small planet has entered the channel. The distorted balance of the sky changed, and Jang Haeyoung listened to all the messages with joy and despair. The constellation Secretive Plotter has entered the channel.